I am, and I think you better have too. You know, honey, I'm okay, you're okay. That there's what it is.
I know, but honey.
I need a map.
I hate this! I know you do!
They are next.
And we're
in fact,
next.
They're here.
Hi, I'm Sick.
And I'm okay.
And we are the Cinemaniacs.
That
How
works.
are you?
That's not bad.
I just want to apologize for my stuffiness.
You used to apologize to me, not to them.
I'm sorry. Well, like I like to say to people, if you want a little time off work, I'll shake your hand. And get a nice long weekend out of it, perhaps. We have a robust, round, so firm, so fully packed, so free and easy on the draw program today that we should probably leap right into it.
Okay.
I'm fuzzy and sucking on a lozenge, so it may slow me down verbally as well.
Fair enough.
First up is the only new film that came to the town in which we live this weekend.
Yes,
the only
true.
first-run Hollywood film in a multiplex theater in the town in which we reside.
Indeed.
New Disney film, new Pixar film.
Yes.
Here's the tale, down Mexico way, of a youth and a guitar and a passion and a love that knows no mortal bounds in a world filled with music and expression and cups perhaps containing Coco.
Simply name your favorite brand. Awesome ice cream, so good and helpful too.
Kind of a quick one. As is our wont, we were chatting while you were watching the trailer. But yeah, visually, I mean, it's from Pixar. So I think, and while I've been occasionally disappointed because my expectations are always so high for Pixar. Some of their films in the past, I'll say decade, have been a little disappointing, but that's because I do expect so much. They're always visually just unbelievable. The animation is terrific. They're always very, and this is either the Pixar or the Disney touch, I'm not sure which, but very morally uplifting, very family oriented, and you get all of those same things. This one has a very ethnic feel. It's got a very Hispanic background feel, and I think obviously because I know the director lives in that area, and when you're out in California, that's just often what the majority of the culture is like. So that might be a little bit different for some people here in New England and on the East Coast and throughout the rest of America who might not be terribly familiar with that. Terrific performances, I'll say, from a lot of the voices that you'll recognize, so that's always fun. This is I wouldn't rank this up. They say, from the creators of Toy Story, which I think is not only a marvelous animated film, but a brilliant film, period. And wasn't crazy about Finding Dory, but Nemo, of course, was wonderful. I rank this in the real strong middle of where Pixar's things work. Some of the characters, again, feel like I was talking to a friend of mine on whose radio show I tend to frequent, and we both kind of said, in just looking at the trailers, it looks like this might borrow quite a bit from Tim Burton from Nightmare Before Christmas. We see a skeleton in there who drops his jaw. I can't remember if we saw that in this trailer, but there's a skeleton character in there that feels very much like that. But it's very much in keeping with the feel of the film itself. And ultimately, I thought Coco was pretty strong. I don't think you're going to be seeing this around, nearly the way you do Dory and Toy Story. So there, I liked it.
I did not see it. It looks visually sumptuous.
As they always are.
The scuttlebutt I've heard online has been very strong.
Yes.
So it makes me regret it, but I was sick and I didn't feel like going. You have some connection personally to somebody involved with this.
I shot the director's senior film, so yeah, I know Lee pretty well. So
That's
he and
really
I have
cool.
been chatting back and forth. When Lee, the funny story was, because my son has been sending me all sorts of, Lee's been getting interviewed left and right by NPR and everybody and his brother, which is great. And so he asked, do you talk to Lee at all? And when Toy Story 2 first came out, and it's directed by Lee Unkrich, I sent him an email, and I sent him another one like a month or two later because he never got back to me. And I realized that probably for the first 6 months after Toy Story came out, everybody he'd ever met in a subway was emailing him. And I think finally, once he realized that I wasn't asking for a job, he emailed me back, and he and I have been in touch quite a bit, quite regularly. And so I may even try to see if we can get him doing like an interview or something for this show in the next couple of weeks. We'll see.
Cool. So this film, was it illuminated, and was it of any duration?
Well, when you're at the one of the problems is when you're in the theater.
Yes.
They have to bring the lights down.
Yes.
And it lasts for quite a while. Enough of the playing around. Here we are. Winston Churchill is having some trouble with some of those Narzies who are trying to break their way into the UK and into England. It's a difficult time to be running England, and you might very well say that the scenes that we see take place in his darkest hour. I think you certainly have to keep your eyes and ears open for this because I hear I was not able to see this, although I wanted to. Oldman. I hear Oldman is just spectacular, but also because it comes late in the year and everybody's thinking about it. I think we're going to hear about this pretty regularly at the Oscars. And
my experience with this film was similar to yours.
Really?
And I didn't see it.
Nearly exactly like
So we're presenting this as informational so that you know, in case you don't get out to the theaters to see these trailers, or you don't go online to watch these trailers, or this trailer doesn't pop up automatically over some other web page that you're trying to read something on, we present it to you as such.
We can switch back now because the first one I saw, and you weren't able to see, we have a similar instance, only the roles are reversed.
We reversed the curse on this one. So up next is a film that I did see, but not him. It stars Frances McDormand as the mother of a murdered youth who decides to get the attention of the local police department by putting up 3 billboards outside Ebbing, Missouri.
Now a short intermission, so you'll have time to make your selection before the show begins.
She's always plays such happy characters.
So this is Frances McDormand's film.
Yeah, so she's wonderful.
She is front and center and very strong presence in this film as a no-nonsense, badass mama,
right.
Mama Bear, who has a salty tongue and is not afraid to aim it at the subject of her ire.
Right, but 2 really solid supporting actors in the police department there.
Sam Rockwell and Woody Harrelson.
Yeah.
There are also other familiar faces. Peter Dinklage is in it.
Okay.
There's a couple other people, folks would recognize, and he's quite good. The thing about Peter Dinklage, okay, the man is not tall. We know this. But I find when I'm watching him in a movie, I forget that pretty quickly because he's good.
Yeah.
Like, unless the role is really drawing attention to that, you're just, okay, I'm looking a little lower in the frame to see what he has to say. But otherwise, the guy's just solid. So this film is advertised in such a way as that it looks like a comedy.
Right.
Or it looks like it has a very light tone to it. All the comedic moments that are in the trailer are in the film. But overall, my impression of the movie was that it was a pretty sad film overall. Because the subject matter is this woman's daughter was brutally killed, and she is upset that the police department has not solved this murder over the course of many, many months. So she puts up these billboards in order to draw some attention to it via the media and to just embarrass the police department. And it basically causes a lot of strife in this small southern town where for a little bit of this movie, I had a B for it. It was portraying every cop as like dirty and nasty, and I'm like, there are good and there are bad, but I don't believe there is uniformly bad. But ultimately, you see some better people show up. Sam Rockwell is very strong as a really nasty piece of work. He is funny on occasion, but his character is also so nasty that you feel bad laughing at when he's goofy. It's like, yeah, but he's kind of a dirtbag. I don't think what he's doing is really too cool. The salty tongue stuff that's played up in the trailer is all there, but it is not constant in the movie. So I was a little disappointed in watching the movie from seeing the trailer so many times, feeling like all of those witty, zippy lines, I've already seen in the trailer, and there wasn't any more to it
Well,
than
and my
that.
understanding is there's also quite a bit of other language as
Well,
well.
there is a version of the trailer that those who are watching this on television did not just see that is filled with the salty language. And the film it's rated R mostly for language more than anything else. There's a little subject matter. There's nothing really too graphic, and there's a little violence, but not much. But I think this is a film where if this looks good to you, you will enjoy it. You might be disappointed that it's not as funny as it seems, but it's really solid. I wouldn't call it great, but I would call it very good.
Okay.
The ending was a little open-ended, but I ultimately was okay with that. As it was getting toward the end, I'm like, oh, this is just going to stop. One of those movies that goes on and then just stops with no resolution.
McDormand or Rockwell strong enough that we're going to see him come March?
I bet you'll see McDormand come March. I think so. She's without her, the movie would not be nearly what it is. So I thought it was good. Not a movie for the kids or for those who are easily offended by blue language, let me say. That is all we have to discuss regarding that which you can see in the theater this current week or weeks. We now move on. We thank our friends at the Latches Theater in Brattleboro, Vermont, for sponsoring this fine program and having such a lovely old theater.
Well, this program at least.
This fine program. It's up to you. That's not our call. That's yours. Now we move on to discuss that which is available on the home video medium format or platform of your choice.
However it may have happened.
However it may proceed.
Stuck back in the Cold War, America and our allies are having trouble with the Soviets and everybody else really behind the Iron Curtain. And so it's time to have a little mystery. And you never know for whom James McAvoy is playing. You never know. John Goodman is on our side, and he's going to try to help Charlize Theron as she proves to be an amazingly adept super spy who everybody likes to call the Atomic Blonde.
But we know, too, that they can be used harmfully, as in atomic bombs.
So I think this is definitely what you see is what you get from the trailer.
Oh, yeah.
Unbelievable action. Theron is loads of fun. I love McAvoy. Basically, you can probably tell I had a great time with this. I haven't seen it again on video. I'm certainly going to watch it. Thinking about like it enough that I might very well buy this.
I will, because so few action movies are done correctly. To
Overall,
my eye.
it's shot properly, and that's certainly one thing that I'm sure you'll address when we get to it. I thought the action was terrific. I thought the plot and the twists and turns. I had to see this in the theaters twice to fully appreciate the script. It's pretty
It had something
dense.
I missed: intrigue.
Right,
It was a Cold War. It's a spy movie with intrigue. It's
Yeah.
not just action, which was
And
nice to see.
there's one scene I'll let you complain about, rightfully so. One of the overtly stylized camera action scenes. But there's also one bit that would anybody else notice it? But people who are critics and stuff. But there's one single take fight where Theron spends. I think it runs like 4 or 5 minutes long, and it's just terrific. If you like brutal violence from, like, as you say, action suspense stuff, I thought Atomic Blonde was terrific.
It's set in Berlin in 1989 because the 80s are cool, but the 90s are about to be cool. So let's just put it right on the
Right in
cusp.
there.
So it can,
Medium cool,
it can
sort
be
of medium.
Medium cool, yeah,
Sorry.
it's with Robert Forster, featuring Robert Forster. So it's set in 89, and it's got a very cold look to it. It's very bluish. No, it was bluish, but apparently it's bluish. And the music is all... Okay, here's my beef. I've had discussions with people online about this. The music is very early 80s new wave, and this is 89. And my thing was, the radio was not playing 99 Left Balloons in 1989. They had moved on. It was hard to find that music at that point. And breakdancing street toughs were not listening to 99 Left Balloons on their boombox at that point. They probably had moved on. People have said to me, I listen to music that's old, and people have said, oh, well, Berlin was behind the times. I don't know. It just stuck out to me that it was trying to latch onto, like, the good 80s music while being set when the music wasn't so good. That aside, the music in this movie is great. It's a really solid soundtrack. It fits the look of it, a lot of neon. It's really well shot. It's produced or directed by one or more people who did the John Wick movies, so they know what they're doing with the action. Theron is magnificent. Goodman is good at what he does. You have the woman, Sophia, is it Boutella? She's
we've seen her in several things recently.
She's the new mummy. She's the lady mummy. in that Life Force remake that came out recently with Tom Cruise. And so I thought this was a lot of fun. And so as we were saying, it has like espionage in it, and it has who's got the button or whatever the thing is, the package. Where's the package? How do we get the package across the line? Very good cast, looks great. Okay, the action. The action's really, really good for the most part. The one beef I had was with the sequence that everybody loves the most, which I hated. It's a big, long fight scene that is made to look like it's one take. So it's all handheld. It's all the problems we always have. The camera is too close. See, with cutting, you can cut to an angle that shows off what's going on, and you can really give the best viewpoint for everything that's happening. When you're doing it with one camera, you don't get a lot of that. So a lot of the moves are being obscured, and it's really rough and tumble. And maybe it feels more real and brutal, but I don't go to a movie for things to feel real. I go to a movie to see things. So there's this big long take, and then they get into a car, and you see a little in the trailer where they're doing all these things, but you're looking through the windshield and seeing what's going on outside the windows, which again is not the best viewpoint for this stuff. If a car's rolling over and doing a corkscrew in the air, I want to see the best possible angle. I don't want to see it in the distance doing that. So to me, I felt very confined and almost claustrophobic by that sequence because I'm like, I want to see this better than what you're showing me. That aside, I really like this, and as we said, I probably will own this because so few action movies please me anymore that when I see one that does, I get like a little anime schoolgirl. I jump up and down, my legs go out sideways. So I really liked Atomic Blonde, if you couldn't tell from that.
Yes.
Up next, speaking of coldness, it's my turn, isn't it?
It is.
We have a film. I need to stop saying, oh, I'm sorry. I just said it again. This is a film written and or produced and or directed by people who gave us films such as Sicario and what was the movie with the new Captain Kirk that I loved so much like a year ago?
Hell or High Water.
Hell or High Water. You think I remember the title. It was one of my favorite movies of that year. Another film detailing crimes against innocence and the barren landscape. Here we have Jeremy Renner investigating a murder on an Indian reservation in the cold of winter. Watch it with your window open and in the wintertime, and it'll be like 4D. This is entitled Wind River. Not a smiling movie.
This was a surprise to me. I wasn't expecting this to be nearly as strong. I mean, again, given the track record, you talked about Sicario, which was very solid, Hell or High Water, which I thought was wonderfully suspenseful. I like Renner. I'll always laugh, sorry, but I think your character from the Avengers has no business being on the Avengers, but anyway, that's neither here nor there. We see a lot of strange texts being sent. What surprised me the most about this was very suspenseful. It builds up. It's all about this mystery. He's trying to help this FBI agent played by not one of the Olsen twins, but their sister.
Elizabeth Olsen.
Elizabeth Olsen, right. She just knocked my socks off throughout the whole thing. I thought she was just wonderful. So that's what I was left with most, that Renner is always solid. This is a real interesting story, wrapped up interestingly, and Graham Greene is in this. I liked him a lot. But ultimately what I was left with, and I know I keep commenting, not lately, I find myself over the past couple of months commenting much more on performances that knock my socks off as opposed to necessarily the films themselves. This is a real solid film. But I just thought Olsen took the day. I'd love to see her get a supporting actress nod.
She's been really strong since I first noticed her in anything. People probably know her best as Scarlet Witch from the last couple of Marvel movies or from a few Marvel movies. She's been in a lot of things. So she's really strong. Renner's great. It's really good, but again, this is like a real downer of a movie. This is a downer. Partly just it's an Indian reservation where nobody's happy. It's all alcoholism and crime and drug addiction and not a lot of smiling going on. And the incident in question is this young girl is found, half clothed, beaten in the middle of the snow. Like, how did she get here and what happened? When you ultimately see the scene where they replay what happened, it is so unpleasant and uncomfortable. It just, I had like my stomach was in knots in the movie because I was just like, this is just terrible. And then there's a scene of I'm not going to give anything away because you really should see it, not for kids. There's like a standoff in this film, or there's a moment of incredible tension where you realize, ooh, something bad could happen right now, and if this bad thing happens to these good people, nobody's really going to do anything about it or find out about it.
I think
and it was like incredibly tense.
the exact scene you're talking about. I think filmically, it really only takes place probably for like a minute or so.
Yeah, not long.
But it felt like 5, and not because it dragged out. It was like, oh my God, how tense can this scene possibly be?
And then
I just thought it was wonderful.
Later on, that pays off in a scene that I did not expect to go that way. I'm like, yeah, it won't go to that degree, and it does. I'm like, wow, I never thought I would see that in this movie. And it's not a werewolf.
Yeah, you're right.
Sadly.
This takes chances and goes directions that I really didn't expect.
Yeah,
you're right.
And ultimately, while sad, I found it quite satisfying.
Yeah.
Speaking of family films.
Oh, exactly. But all of our friends from the Nut Job, you remember them, they're back again, but they're having to defend their environment. Haven't you seen, you might not necessarily have heard of this before, but the mayor in town wants to just take over all of the lovely Greenland that our wonderful family friends have taken over to build an amusement park. Now, I love amusement parks, but I think we got to side with our nut job friends there because as crazy as they might be, we know that they are nutty by nature.
That's our agreement. We got to keep slim and trim. It helps to eat the right kind of food, like a post-Grape Nuts breakfast.
So again, what you see is what you get. If you liked the first one, and I wasn't crazy about the first one, I don't think I was as down on it as I believe you were.
I really didn't like the first one. I thought it was really strictly for little kids.
Yeah, you're right. And this one does a better, because I think that is one of the things that we've said pretty regularly. When you have a film that is clearly for the youngsters, and this is one of the great things about Pixar, although Pixar I tend to think aims more for adults, and has enough there for the kids to enjoy. I hope that other animated films are kind of the opposite. These are clearly made for kids. Can't you have enough there for the adults that are at least interesting? And I'm not talking about like sexual innuendo or anything, just clever.
Well, that's the thing is that so many people think, oh, for adults, we need to make pop culture references and stuff like that.
Yeah.
No, just make it good.
Right.
If you think of Looney Tunes, they're making those for themselves
Oh my goodness,
as
yeah.
adults, and they
Absolutely.
hold up.
Right. And so this I thought was better than the first one in that I thought there's enough in there for everybody. The animation is terrific. We've seen the story all over again. It's the bad corporation coming in to destroy the town, not only because of our furry friends who will lose their habitat, but so for what it was, I thought the Nut Job 2 was actually better than the original Nut Job. I wasn't down on the first one, but I thought there's certainly enough there for kids and for everybody that I enjoyed it.
Most importantly for me, if I ever do watch this, how much was the Jackie Chan character in this film?
Oh, right, yeah, not a whole lot.
Because he almost looked amusing in the trailer to me.
He's not front and center. We'll say that.
Oh well, we'll put this a little lower on the list than it would have been otherwise. Speaking of 70s exploitation films,
yes,
which I generally am more often than not, especially when I'm off camera, we have a new release of an old movie from VCI Entertainment, who have been around they've been around since like the dawn of home video, and they specialize in like foreign films and not foreign, like old British films and old junky horror movies like I like, and they're a company that I've bought from personally for quite a while. So I'm going to be honest, getting one of their things, a new release of theirs that I would have bought anyway for free, is a very nice thing. I'm not going to say anything nice about it if it wasn't good, but it was nice to not have to pay for it. Here we have a film starring Piper Laurie from, I believe, 1976, featuring a drive-in theater. So again, you don't have to go too much farther than that to please me. This film is entitled Ruby.
$9.99 for 2 as an app, or $9.99 with fries and endless trips to our fresh garden bar. Only at Ruby Tuesday.
Dun, dun, dun.
So like any good trailer for a trashy movie, they're selling it hard.
Right.
As we were saying off air, this trailer's first there was The Exorcist, then there was The Omen.
Yep.
It's factual information. We're not necessarily comparing this movie. You could draw comparisons if you want.
Right.
They wouldn't be very good ones, but you could do that. So basically the story here is that Piper Laurie is a faded film star who was in love with a gangster who was killed back in the 30s or 40s. Yeah. And now it is the film was shot in the 70s, but this takes place, I believe, in the 50s.
Yeah, it feels like
I think it's a 20-year thing, so 40s to 50s or 30s to 50s. She owns this drive-in. She pines for her dead lover. She has a daughter who's mute, doesn't talk, who is the daughter she had from this tryst. And something starts happening on the drive-in lots. People start getting killed. Good double feature with Drive-In Massacre, actually. Not a very good movie, but a good thematic double feature. And so Roger Davis shows up, who people know. I believe he was on Alias Smith and Jones in the 70s. And I knew him as he was on Dark Shadows. So cool to see him in a movie always. He shows up as a doctor trying to help this girl, speak and come out of her shell. And he helps, with this weird supernatural stuff that's going on. So to me, it's nostalgic for drive-ins. It's a 70s movie, so that's got that going for it. And Piper Laurie is wonderfully crazy. She's not Carrie crazy. No. She's toned down from that, but she's still a little
clearly
nutty.
why they cast her.
She's a little Gloria Swanson Sunset Boulevard thing going on there, which I'm sure it was intentional. You have Stuart Whitman, who to me is always a dependable. He shows up and he does his thing. So I like this movie. Now this is a new Blu-ray that has just come out from VCI, so it's a new transfer. I think it looks about as good as this movie can look. It still has a little bit of a dimness to it and a dinge, but I think that's probably chalked up more to how it was produced than anything else. I don't think it was a very expensive movie to make. The disc has a whole bunch of extras on it. It's got a commentary, it's got trailers, a bunch of goodies if you want to learn more about how it came to be. So I found all that really interesting. I believe, if I'm not blending my DVD extras together, Blu-ray extras, they talked to some people who were involved in the production, and that's cool. So I had a good time with Ruby. I wouldn't call it top tier horror or schlock, but it's a fun hidden gem. Again, might be giving it too much credit. It's a fun hidden nugget that people might not know about.
I went into this, obviously loving The Exorcist, loving The Omens and things like that. You and I are usually on the same wavelength with that. I think you're a little bit more appreciative of some of the lower level, maybe more B-budget.
Trashy?
We could say that.
I say that lovingly.
I wasn't going to say that.
No, I like it.
But so I went into this expecting not the greatest ride, and I had a good time with it. I thought it had moments of, not terror, but almost suspense, but some fright. It brings up supernatural commentary and things like that. So I thought if this is one of those where I would say if unfortunately our friends at Video headquarters are gone once again, but had you gone there looking for The Exorcist, or as they say, looking for The Omen, and those were all out, this would have been a fun little substitute. I thought performances were fine, and overall I wasn't bothered as much by the quality. I know that I think a couple of the scenes that you're referring to that were a little dim and maybe not the greatest transfers in the world. But overall, I thought Ruby was a pleasant surprise.
Well, this is a movie I've seen on TV. I've seen it on actual
I think I remember
film.
seeing it in theaters, yeah.
I actually saw it at a drive-in a few years ago. It was perfect. And I had the previous VHS or DVD edition.
Okay.
Easily the best I've ever seen this look. So kudos to VCI for going the extra mile.
Speaking of movies that look really good.
Really?
Strangely.
Should I?
You probably should.
Should I? Could I? It's the Arrow Video Corner as Tom prepares for Arrow right in the wall.
They're on right it.
This is, we only have one to talk about today, so I can take my time with this. We have a new release of a 70s blaxploitation supernatural, again, title. Glenn Turman, a face you'll recognize. He was in Gremlins and he's been in a ton of stuff. I believe he's in Cooley High as well. Stars as a young man who becomes possessed by the spirit of another dead gangster who is not a very nice guy, but he's got a beef to settle from the past. And we will see what happens when his spirit enacts JD's revenge. So this is a movie that I first saw. Orion Home Video in the late 80s had a line of AIP movies they put out.
Okay.
They put out a lot of blaxploitation. They put out the Pam Grier movies and a lot of the AIP stuff. And it was exciting to get those things on home video for the first time because I was too young to see any of the AIP movies. And AIP is a studio that I love pretty much across the board. I saw them all on Saturday afternoon TV. So I never saw them in the theater or on video. So to see them uncut and on video was very exciting. So this is the first time I've seen this since that old videotape that I had 20 years ago, maybe. And it's Arrow, so sing along if you know the words. It looks fantastic. It's the best the movie's ever looked. It didn't, the quality didn't blow me away, and maybe it's because sometimes Arrow really rescues movies from how crappy they looked forever. This looked okay on video, and again, it was a low-budget movie, so I think this looks as good as it's ever going to look for whoever is really, clamoring for a museum-quality copy of JD's Revenge. Hey, now you got it. Celebrate. So it looks great. It is loaded with extras. I will admit I did not have time to really delve into the extras, although I can tell you that it's got at least one commentary, interviews with a lot of the cast, even some minor cast members. a trailer reel for the director, which is really cool because if you like these kind of movies, here is 20 minutes of the best parts of a whole bunch of blaxploitation and trashy movies that this guy did. The movie itself, which is really what you should be purchasing something to watch, is it's interesting. Interestingly enough, I didn't plan this, but it has parallels with Ruby. The story, as I may have said earlier, I'm sick, so forgive me if I repeat myself, and we've got a quarter of an hour to talk about this movie. Young guy with a girlfriend, nice guy, somehow winds up being possessed by the spirit of like a pimp or a gangster who was murdered, wrongly accused of something and killed like in the 30s or 40s. Okay. And slowly he starts transforming into this guy to try to enact revenge on Lou Gossett Jr., who was a bad gangster and now is a preacher man. So he's kind of pendulum has swung the other way for him. Right. And you're basically seeing how his friends react to him going from this really nice guy to this not a nice guy at all. And the first time I saw this movie, I didn't really love it because of how nasty the main character turns out. I mean, he's a bad guy, so they don't hold back on that. So he does not treat women with respect, let's say, and he uses coarse language, and he knows how to use a knife. And that still holds true. I like this a lot more because I went into it knowing that. And I guess if you want to show a good guy turning into a bad guy, you make him bad. You don't make him still a nice guy, but he has a limp now or something. So that works. The elements that people might want to watch for blaxploitation are pretty toned down in this movie. There's not a lot to laugh at if you're so inclined. There's some dialogue, which in the little clip we showed was in there. But otherwise, it's a pretty straightforward movie. Although the ending is funny, the way it wraps up, it sort of wraps up with, all this terrible stuff happened, but everything's fine now, and let's laugh and freeze frame. It wraps up like the end of an A-Team episode. So I'm always, when I'm watching this, I started to get these gears turning. I'm like, this feels like it's a pilot for a show. Like, is he going to get possessed every week and have to figure out a crime? That's almost like Quantum Leap or something. That's not how it turned out, but So I thought this was fun. If you like AIP movies, boy, if you like anything, having Arrow put it out is the best thing you can hope for because it's going to be the best version you're ever going to have. They are my criterion, really. So I thought JD's Revenge was fun. Not a favorite of mine, but you can't knock the presentation.
Fair enough.
That's all we have to talk about as far as what was released this week. There was one or two things I wanted to mention.
Alrighty.
I'm struggling to remember what they were now because, as I said, I'm sick. Oh, I was at the Alamo Drafthouse the other day, as I am. And this will apply to everybody, whether you can get to that theater or not. And if you can get to that theater, it's too late. The show already happened. There, you know this film Suspiria?
I do.
The 1977, 76 Dario Argento crazy horror masterpiece to me. That, for a long time, if you saw that on film in this country, you saw a print that's owned by a friend of mine, actually, that was the U.S. version of the film that 20th Century Fox released under a different studio titles, 21st Century or something like that. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I'm sick. Did I mention I was sick? Anyway, the version that played in this country theatrically was edited by about 6 minutes of some gore and some pacing stuff. When it was put out on home video in 89 or 88, it was put out, I think you could get the R or the unrated version. Anyway, when it was been put out on DVD, it was always the original version. Some people at the Chicago Film Society discovered an uncut Italian print of Suspiria. Wow. They have since, this is an interesting story. So they've discovered this print pretty recently. Don May Jr. at Synapse Films has been undertaking a restoration, a 4K restoration of Suspiria for years now, and if you know anything about him, he does it right, and things come out when he says they're finished. So part of that deal was that there would be a Blu-ray of that, and there would be a DCP that theaters could show. So just before May was finished with that, the Chicago Film Society announced, we're now booking this uncut print of Suspiria if you want to show it. So a lot of theaters were like, oh wow, it's an uncut version, and people were going crazy, thinking they're seeing something they haven't seen before. It's the same version that you've always seen if you've been watching it on DVD or whatever. Any version you're going to find on video is this version. The only trick is that this version is the Italian version, so it's in Italian. So theaters who show this have to figure out a way to do electronic subtitles on the screen. Okay, right. So I went to the Alamo to see this because, honestly, because they booked it and I bought my ticket before I knew Synapse was putting their version out, which is now playing all over the place too. And I want to say the theater in Amherst, Massachusetts, has got the 4K of Suspiria coming up soon, or that already played. I think the Brattle already played it, And I'm going to see it like this. Too late for any of you to do anything about it, but this week, Proctor's Theater in Schenectady, New York, is running the 4K on their big screen. So in 2 days from when we tape, I'm going to go see that. But anyway, I went to see this at the Alamo. The on-screen electronic subtitles worked quite well.
Okay.
The print isn't perfect. It was a little reddish. Like, I didn't really notice it much. If something was supposed to be black, it had like a reddish tone to it, so that's how you could tell. But overall, it wasn't like pink or terrible like you've seen, but it looked good. It was a packed crowd. They sold out one show, or they nearly sold out one show, and the show I attended was very well attended. Interesting seeing it solely in Italian with subtitles, because I've always ever seen it in English. So to me, it was like, well, I'm going to put my mind that I'm in a theater in Italy when this movie came out, or the way the color was 5 years after this movie came out. And it was a really cool experience. Now I'm going to see it in 2 days to see what a perfectly restored version of that looks like, with 7.1 surround sound and approved by the original DP and everything, and that should be really, really interesting too. But I just wanted to bring that up in case any of you out there see this touring print of the Italian version coming to your town. Just know that it's not more than you've ever seen, and that it's in Italian, which is probably not the way you've seen it. But to my eye, and I'm fairly critical of these things, and I love this movie, it's one of my favorites, it did look really good, and it was cool to see it on film in that way. And there was one point on the soundtrack, there's this voice that yells, "Witch!" And I've always known that, because it's about witches. And whoever did the translation translated that witch as wait. So it looks like some mystery voice is telling Jessica Harper, "Wait," which is actually pretty good advice, because there's hell on the other side of that door. Anyway, I'm a huge fan of that. I think they just announced the release date, Synapse's release date for the 4K Blu-ray, or the Blu-ray of Suspiria, as sometime in December that's shipping. And it is currently playing theaters like everywhere. So that successfully ate up about 8 minutes.
Well, there you go.
Anything you would care to discuss in this?
Not really.
Not really.
Star Wars is coming up. I'm hoping it's not just The Empire Strikes Back.
Okay, have we talked about this yet?
We haven't.
I am loved Rogue One.
Yep.
Really didn't like Force Awakens. It's a fun movie to watch, but it's a remake of Star Wars.
It's Star Wars, right.
And their theory was, we have to reintroduce this characters and this. No, you don't. Everybody knows. And if they don't, they can read it on their phone. They can actually probably watch all 3 of the previous movies while waiting in line or in the theater to see the new one.
Right.
And from what I'm seeing in the trailers, I'm trying to avoid anything about the new movie other than that one original trailer that came out.
Okay.
I'm like, let's see. Rey goes far away from everything that's going on to train with an old Jedi master. That's pretty much Empire.
Yep.
And I'm really nervous that this is just, everybody getting their little tight pants about being able to remake Empire. And then the third one, there'll be a bunch of little creatures where they have to save the Empire.
I was surprised, 40 years ago, whenever it was, when Star Wars first came out, at the merchandising. It's unbelievable. The kind of, they have whatever the
Isn't
name
there
of
a car,
the
like
last
Mercedes or something is
I
marketing
have no
the new
idea.
Star
They have
Wars?
the Last Jedi printer paper, where you pay $40 just because the box has the characters on it. It's pretty amazing.
I like it when they put stickers on fruit at the grocery store. They did that with the last one. They're like Yoda
the banana.
on an orange.
Right.
Hey, why not? I as a kid, when the original Star Wars trilogy came out, I loved the merchandising.
Oh, sure.
Give me anything with Star Wars on it. Star Wars cookies, I took those to school every day.
They must be better.
C-3POs, never ate them. Anyway, so that's coming out, I hear tell.
Yeah.
Our friends at Keen Cinemas obviously are running that, and you can pre-buy tickets now. I'm sure the Latches will have it. I know Springfield, actually, if you go to Keen Cinemas, Springfield on screen is advertising.
That's
go
fun.
to Springfield, because they have, Chad spends a lot of money on props.
He's
and
a big
replicas,
Star Wars fan.
and he's a huge Star Wars fan. So I think if you go to the Springfield, for local people, Springfield, Vermont Theater, it's a very large screen, and they have like life-size, like Boba Fett, Darth
museum
Vader.
They've got it, basically.
It's essentially a museum. So I may actually try to see it there just to get that experience. Sure. And they take MoviePass. So until next week, when we talk more about things that are not films either of us have seen yet, I'm Mark.
And I'm Tom.
And we are
the Cinemaniacs.